All right, we get ready to start. We'd like to welcome everyone to our 42nd annual awards ceremony. This is the first time we've done a launching. Usually it's at night, banquet, but so many wanted to have Saturday night off. So we listen to you, we hear you, we value you, we value your input. We would like for anyone that wants to have anything to say, please see us sometime during this day in jail. We do value you, and we hope that you would bring others to the conference next year. Right now, we'll have our invocation by Elder LeVar Burton.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this occasion, and Lord, we just ask your blessings upon our governor and our director and all the DFAC staff and others who are actively involved, and Lord, upon the foster parents and the children of Georgia. We thank you for blessing this occasion. We ask now that you just keep us in our care and bless this meal. As we partake, let us take time to remember that there are those across the world and our nation who don't have these privileges. Let us be willing to reach out and help any opportunity you give us. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
We're going to have the introduction of our Division Director, Mr. Cagle. Ms. Deborah Burrows from 2 Peachtree Street will introduce our Division Director.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to make this short and sweet. I am not going to go over Mr. Cagle's bio, even though it's very impressive, and we all know that as he was appointed last year by the governor to head the Division of Family and Children Services. The two things that you all probably care most about is that is he someone that we can trust, and is he someone that cares? And I stand before you this afternoon saying Mr. Cagle is definitely that person who you can trust and who cares about everything that we do on behalf of Georgia's children.
Thank you very much, Deborah. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. Mr. Daniels, thank you for inviting me. Thanks to AFPAG for all of the work that you do. And most importantly, if I leave the stage without saying anything else, I want to say to the foster parents in the room, the state of Georgia owes you a debt that we will never be able to repay. You do such important work. You take care of children that have had very difficult circumstances, very difficult lives, and you make them better. And I can't think of a thing that I would prefer have said about me when I depart the earth than for someone to say that I cared about a child enough to give of myself. And I can say that truly about each and every one of you. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Just to tell you a little bit about who I am. Just a little bit about who I am. The reason that I do this work. I oftentimes tell reporters when they're interviewing me that this work to me is personal. It's personal to me on a number of levels, but it's personal to me first and foremost because I was adopted from the child welfare system in North Carolina. I was 10 months old. I was a part of the old orphanage system in North Carolina. That kind of tells you how old I am. But it was a true blessing in my life. A social worker found a family for me that provided me constant love and care. Things that they really couldn't afford to do, like send me to college. They sacrificed. And they made sure that I had what I needed to grow up and to be able to stand here today. It is not lost on me for one moment that I could have been one of the many children who age out of foster care without a permanent family, without someone who cares for them, and someone who can provide them with guidance throughout their life. And it's in the recognition of that I do my work. I came out of college, began as a child protective services worker, and have spent my career over the past 20-odd years trying to make sure that I made a difference in the lives of families and children, both in North Carolina and now in my adopted state of Georgia. So it is my pleasure to serve as the Director of the Division of Family and Children Services. And in doing so, it is my goal that the children of this system have what I had: love and care, guidance, sometimes discipline, and needed it. And I know that that's what you do for your children, and it is such a special thing. As we're growing older and at some point we'll be gone from this earth, there will be children walking around whose memory you will live in. And they will do many of the things in their lives the way that you did them with them as a child. I have said many times that the guidance my parents gave me lives with me every day. It's almost as if I have a person sitting on my shoulder periodically. That's typically my mother, who whispers in my ear and says, "You ought to do this because it's the right thing." She also told me at one point that I needed to look around. I think I had complained that I didn't have the right kind of tennis shoes in high school. My mom was an outreach worker doing community social work for 25 years as I was growing up. She made a point to take me with her that day as she took clothes to a family and food to a family that didn't have that. And as we left there, she told me that I needed to remember that no matter how bad you have it in life, somebody always has it worse. And that stuck with me. My entire life's goal is to make sure that the children of the state of Georgia, the children of our country, have what they need to grow up, be great, and to make our state and country great. Just a couple of things that I'll say to you about the initial work that I've done as director. The expectation that I have of my staff is that they treat everybody with courtesy, that they treat people with the respect that they deserve. I treat them with respect. I expect my staff, my leadership, to treat my workers with respect, and I expect them to do the same for the foster parents, the parents, and the children that we work with. Where we fail in that, I need to know about it, because I will take steps to correct it. It's not right that we don't get payments out to foster parents timely. It's not right that we have caseworkers that do not return phone calls. It's not right that we're not doing everything we can to assure that the children and the foster parents that care for them have the things that they need. So through your foster parent association, you communicate with me as to what your needs are. And I will do the very best that I can to assure that we get those things taken care of. It will be a process, there's no doubt about it. We have 7,300 odd employees around 159 counties in the state. And so it takes a while sometimes for my message to get to the front line. But I continue to hammer home the message that I just gave you. It's about respect. And we have to respect those that we work for and that we work with. Just a little bit about where we're at as an agency. The governor has appointed a Child Welfare Reform Council that came back with a very dramatic set of recommendations. I know Mr. Burkett, Lamar Burkett, is here and on stage with me. He's a part of that Child Welfare Reform Council representing foster parents around this state. And I can't think of a better person to have sat on that, because he and I have worked together for years to address some of the issues that he and his family have faced as foster and adoptive parents. And in doing so, he was able to bring the voice of those in this room that could not be there for each and every one of those meetings to that table. That has resulted in a recommendation from the governor for us to have an increase in our budget in the range of $31 million in one fiscal year. And that is remarkable. Out of that, that includes 175 additional caseworkers. What that does for me is it helps me to know that there is no excuse for a social worker not returning your phone calls, not assuring that they make regular visits with the children in your home, and to make regular visits with you to see what you need as a foster parent. There's also an additional $9.8 million in that budget that will go for the additional out-of-home care that we need for children. We're now over 10,300 children in foster care, and that takes a lot of money to support. So that money is very important. We also have in the budget an additional $5 million that will be utilized to help us retain our own caseworkers. Part of what we face is a 35% annualized turnover rate. Imagine any one of you who are in business that if you sent 1/3 of your employees out the door and had to train that same third coming back in any given year, what kind of situation you'd face. So that $5 million will help us raise the salaries of caseworkers and hopefully keep them aboard to do the work that we need to do. Another $5.8 million that I consider to be as important, if not more important than any other money in the budget, is dedicated solely to foster parent recruitment and support and training. $5.8 million is a considerable amount of money, and it eclipses any amount of money in the last 10 years that has been devoted to this. We sometimes wonder why we do not have the foster parents that we need around the state. And I tell you, it's very simple. We do not support them in the way that they need to be supported. And as foster parents, I know each and every one of you are our best recruiter, or you can be the person who says to your neighbor who's considering fostering that this is probably not something that you want to do. I want you to be able to leave here today and carry the message that things are on the upswing in the Division of Family and Children's Services, that our intention is to support our foster parents in every way possible. I also need to ask a favor of you. I need each one of you in this room to call your legislator. I need you to call your legislator on Monday morning. Send them an email. Send them a letter. Tell them that we need to support the money that the governor put in the budget for the Division of Family and Children's Services so we can step up and do the work that we need to do. It is very reasonable for a legislator to ask why when a child dies. It is very reasonable for a legislator to ask why when we don't protect children the way we need to. But it's also very reasonable of you to call on your legislator and say, we need the money to do the work that you're calling on us to do. So I ask you to call, each one of you to call and say to your legislator, please support the budget that Governor Deal has put forward to support the work for children and families around the state. And also to support Senate Bill 138, which is the corresponding Child Welfare Reform Council bill that contains a plethora of things that will help us do the job that we have to do as a state. Again, I want to thank you. I have had a great opportunity to be here this morning to hear some of the training that you are doing. I want to support that. Mr. Daniels has put it to me that we need to have probably 5 times the number of people here next year that we have today. And I promised him I would do the very best I could do to help him get to that goal. I encourage you to enjoy your time here, to enjoy the fellowship with other foster parents, other adoptive parents. The work you do is essential, it is vital, it is so important to the children of our state and to our state's future as a whole. I thank you and I appreciate the opportunity to have been with you today.
We'd like to thank our director for giving those remarks. For truly it's impressive to see a crowd of this size. But as I explained to him, I believe we can do twice as much. And he says he's going to try to get 3 times as much. So we really appreciate him taking the time out of his busy schedule to come and be with us today. I don't know if anybody ever looked out at us today, but you look like a bunch of flowers out there. Everybody different colors, different clothes. You just look so good sitting out there. So we're just glad to have you. We're going to go ahead. The next person, Mrs. Barkley, will come and introduce our keynote speakers for today.
You all do look like flowers. Great, I just had to give this perspective. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Michelle Barkley. I was introduced yesterday. I work with the Committee on Justice for Children with the Supreme Court of Georgia. We sponsored the legal track for this conference. And so you've got a bunch of people. Judge Hammond, we claim Judge Hammond is one of us. Yeah. And he is so awesome. So we're also sponsoring your keynote speaker today, not the wonderful director. He's on his own, but we are sponsoring this keynote speaker here today. I want to tell you just a little bit about him. One is I wanted to say thank you so much, Scott and George, for coming. I really appreciate you being here and making the drive over here. And they told me it was pretty rough. They had some bad traffic issues, like it doubled their trip. But I'm really glad they're here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this keynote conversation came about. I read this great article in a Florida newspaper that had a quote from Scott about how much he loved his foster son. And over time, not at first, he evolved to extend that love to the father of the same son. And they're here with us today. I shared that article with Verdell, who said, call Scott, see if he'd be willing to come and talk about this at our AFPAG conference. I know a lot of you have the same exact story. I've heard from a lot of you that have the exact same story, but we had a great conversation with Scott, and we thought we could turn this into a keynote, and we could talk about this. So he talked to George, and they're here today to share their experience, their journey. And I'm not going to say any more about them. They both have a lot to say themselves, and I don't want to hold anything back before getting to that story. I just want to, again, thank you so much for coming here, and I'll turn this over to Scott.
Thank you, Michelle, and Mr. Daniels, thank you very much for the invitation. This is an absolute honor, and I just want to say good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the luncheon, and just thank you for your time. That's something that we get as foster parents very little of, so I do appreciate that. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the kingdom effect that I believe exists in our role as foster parents. And I want to make sure that I give you a little bit of an introduction. So, as I sit up here and I say, hey, my name is Scott and I'm a foster parent, I sound like I'm at a 12-step meeting maybe. I've got a group of people in here. And maybe we all do need that kind of support sometimes, right? And for those of you in the back, if you can see this, you don't need glasses. I can assure you that your eyes are just fine. But chances are you can't see this. But this should give you a little bit about me. This isn't about me. This is about 2 families and what foster care can do in a community. I will tell you that you can look at those logos. You can judge me. It's okay. I know I'm in Georgia Bulldog country, I think. I went to Virginia Tech. I'm a Steeler fan. I don't know if there's any Steelers in the room, but if there's any Patriots in the room, congratulations. I don't like you, but congratulations. Okay, so just to finish this up on about me, I was 39 years old when I got married. I was single, never married, and had no children. And I married my incredible bride that's here with us today, and I want to thank my wife, Carrie, for all that she does. And I couldn't be standing up here. I can't even put my pants on in the morning without my wife's help, so I appreciate that. So I was single, never married at the age of 39, and I met and fell in love with Carrie, and I can tell you today I have 5 children, and only one of them is biological. So that should kind of summarize where I am in my life as a way to let you know how far this foster care system can go and can grow someday. My wife and I came to the decision to foster because it was on our hearts, because it was something that we wanted to do to grow our family, because we got a little bit of a late start. And it gave us that opportunity to grow our family and to give back to our community. And we had no idea the kingdom effect that was coming. This is a little bit about what it looks like. Now you'll notice there's some, if you can see the screen, it's pretty far away from most of you. We had to blur out the faces so we don't get anybody in trouble with confidentiality and those types of things, but that's a snapshot of when my little Zoe, my biological daughter, was being dedicated at our church. So we'll talk a little bit. I call this, what were we thinking? Like, why? And I asked that to you guys as well, as this room is full of a lot of foster parents. What were we thinking? I mean, why would we ever want to do this, right? The director, and I thank Mr. Cagle for his time as well. The director has a lot on his plate, and I sit there and I look at some of the, I'm in Florida, so it's a little different than the Georgia laws and bills and all the different things, but at the end of the day, we don't have a whole lot of rights as foster parents. I know that I got a little bit of taste of that when I went to court. See, I went to court for every time a child goes to court for a whatever, I show up. And there's a lot of lawyers and a lot of people at the table, but there's never really a foster parent out there being asked, what's your opinion, right? At the end of the day, we're a subcontractor of the state of Florida, and you're a subcontractor of the state of Georgia. And that's a good thing too. But when you look at it, you talk about some of our rights, and from my perspective, I sat there and I said, well, I have a right to have somebody come and inspect my home. I have a right to have somebody make surprise visits in the middle of the night. I have a right to be investigated if somebody says or does or thinks something wrong. So those are some of the rights. At the end of the day, it's just like the director said, for me, this turned into something personal. And I had no idea that was going to happen. I wasn't expecting it, and certainly could never have dreamt it. When I talk about the kingdom effect, I tend to only use 2 books to do things in my life, and the most important one for me is the Bible, and then I use the dictionary to help me define some words that I may not understand. When I look at the kingdom effect, if you can see some of the Bible verses up here on the screen, I'm reminded of Jesus' words where he tells us, I will not leave you as orphans, I will come to you. So when you look at what we're doing as foster parents, and regardless of where you are in your faith, I can't think of anything more important than to know that for all those children that are in our homes right now, Jesus is going to come to them. And then there's a flip side of that kind of makes me nervous over there in Exodus, because it talks about where if you mistreat these foster children, these fatherless children, he's going to kill us with a sword. And I know I don't want to be killed with a sword. So I don't know about the rest of you. That's your business. But I choose not to. So if it's okay with you, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you a little story. And it's a story that lasted 14 months as far as the case is concerned. But it's a story that I believe is going to have a kingdom effect. And it's a love story from my perspective. And it's a story where this child came into our lives, and certainly into my life. I had no idea what it was going to do to me. At the time, my wife was 7 months pregnant with our daughter, and we were kind of expecting her previous pregnancies from another marriage had gone to bed rest. So we were kind of expecting that she may be on bed rest in a couple of weeks or months, and Sure enough, there's a knock on the door, and there's a car seat, and there's a child, and congratulations, you're a dad. Now, I don't know, I've been told up here in Georgia, in Florida, we have what's called the CRRs, the Child Resource Record. Now, up here I'm told maybe it's called the handbook, but at the end of the day, what this is it's a binder of all the stuff that anybody knows about this child, okay? Medical, legal information, some pictures, some doctor's visits, and so on and so forth, right? So you're handed a child, and you're handed a CRR. Now, what did we do the moment that we got that child? We did what every other foster parent in America does, right? We took that CRR, we found those parents' names, and went straight to Google to find out what was going on. Now, that wasn't the first thing we did. We loved on him, and for the sake of confidentiality, for today, I'm going to call him Chubbs, because that was one of the nicknames that we affectionately gave him as he was with us. We loved Chubbs. And when he first came to us, it was like, for me, I was 39 years old, or maybe 40 at the time, and I didn't really know exactly what to do with a baby. My wife and I, we stay in that 0 to 2-year-old age range, so we've had about 7 or 8 babies since we started fostering. And it's a challenge, as we all know, right? And on top of that, then we had, while we had Chubbs with us, we had another child. So now I've got 2 under the age of 1 in the home, and it was a challenge. So we had no sleep, and we did the best that we could, and I'm fortunate that my wife was able to stay home so that she can take care of those children. And over the time, when we go through training and we have agencies that represent us, and we come to conferences like this, and we sit in sessions and we listen to speakers, it really, for me at least, was impossible to be taught what was going to happen when I bonded with a child. There was nobody out there that could prepare me for that. There was no book I could read. There was no video I could watch. There was no recording I could listen to. Because I felt like I had listened to them all. But by the time I had Chubbs in the house, I had finally learned what it was like to bond with a child. Those late night feedings, and of course my wife did most of that work, but the times where I filled in, the diapers, snuggling on the couch, taking naps together, those things were something I wasn't prepared for. So I sit there and I say, I'm falling in love with this child. And the problem is, I'm going to have to give him back. So of course, it's easy to want dad or bio parent, insert whatever name you want to put in there. It's easy to want them to fail. It's easy to look at that case plan and read the paperwork that we get and talk to a caseworker, talk to a guardian ad litem. That's what we use. I don't know if you guys have that here in Georgia. The guardian ad litem program is very active in Florida. It's easy to listen to everybody's opinion and have them talk about how this person's not going to make it. This parent is going to fail. As I look back on it now, we did a lot of that because we were selfish and because we were angry. We were angry at the biological parents for putting their children in a position where they had to come into our home. And we were selfish because I'm just going to go ahead and say it out loud. Once we had fallen in love with Chubbs, we wanted to adopt. And we didn't want him to go back. So I can tell you now that it was wrong, and I admit that. But at the time, when you're living in it, when you're in love with this child, when he feels like he's a part of you, it's almost impossible to bear that burden of what it's going to be like to give him back. I remember, and there's probably 100 stories to tell, but I remember one time when Chubbs came back from a visit with Dad, and he had a bump on his head. And of course, my wife and I, we thought, this is it. We finally got him. smoking gun, right? You got the kid and there's a bump on his head, or there's probably some kind of abuse thing or whatever, all these other things that, are going through our heads as we're judging a person that we've never really even met, that we certainly don't even know. And then of course I have my daughter Zoe, who by the age of 6 months had probably 100 bumps on her head at one time. And I think today, as she sits here in this room with us, I think she's got about 9 different skin marks on her knees from when she just runs around. So, but when it plays into your hand, when it plays into your dreams, it's certainly easy to judge somebody else. I don't know if you're going to be able to see anything on this next slide. It's what I call it. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat this. I demonized George. I mean, he's sitting right here. I'm not going to keep saying the bio. Okay, that's what I did. And I got some people to rally around me too, as my family members and the caseworker and so on and so forth. I think we had 4 or 5 caseworkers by the time it was all said and done. Now, some of these pictures this was just to get a chuckle out of you, but I realize you probably can't see them. But this is about the wrong way to parent. And I think we look at it and we say, we look at those biological parents and we say, they don't know how to parent. I'm better at parenting than them. I have a nicer house, I have a nicer car, my jacket is nicer. So, obviously, I'm a better person, I'm a better parent. And at the end of the day, like I said earlier, I was dead wrong. It has nothing to do with it. And I guess, if that was the case, if we look at those things, whoever has the biggest house or the fastest car or the most money gets all the children, right? I guess today that'll be Bill Gates. I don't really know where they are with the money these days. But at the end of the day, I learned some very valuable lessons that that's not true. The biggest regret that I have while I was demonizing George was that I missed so many different opportunities to minister or to help build or to help share even the little bit of experience that I had as a person and as a father. Instead, I was too busy focusing on what can I do to help him fail. And every time I got a phone call from somebody or an email from somebody involved with the case, I had a preconceived notion of what was going on. I judged his lifestyle, I judged his family, his friends, and again, where was I wrong? So, if any of you in this room have ever had to reunify, for me, it was quite frankly the hardest day I've ever had to experience in my life. If anything, it helped me in my faith because I was completely helpless. There was absolutely nothing that I could do to stop this from happening. And I wanted this child so bad to stay in my life and be in my house every single day. And I would have done anything to make it happen. But, you look at it and what did I expect? The plan all along for 14 months was reunification. I'm not sure why I ever thought that anything different was going to happen. But of course I was clouded by my judgment and I was clouded by the love that I felt for this child. I remember Abraham Lincoln's assassination and Kennedy's assassination and Pearl Harbor. And you were supposed to get that as a joke because I'm not quite that old. But I do remember the space shuttle and I remember 9/11 and I remember every minute of every day that I had to hand Chubbs back to George. And I think that's where it finally hit me. Because I spent a lot of time in prayer. I spent a lot of time in meditation prior to that reunification day. If I'm being honest, in front of my wife and children, I hid from them at times because I would weep uncontrollably as I was preparing to say goodbye. And no agency and no training prepared me for that. No conference, nothing could prepare me for that. And then it all came to an end, for that case at least. And in that moment in the Target parking lot over in Lake Park, Florida, I said goodbye and I handed Chubbs over to George. And it was just that simple act, that simple taking this child and handing him over to another person, which I've done 1,000 times before with my wife or other family members or even a transporter or a caseworker or whatever was going on. But in that moment, I remember feeling the absolute change, the complete role reversal right there in front of my eyes. And now, I became George's biggest fan. Because I love that. I love that child as if he's my own. And I want him to have the best life that he could possibly have. So, I had to take 14 months of demonizing Dad and turning around. And I had to look at being his biggest fan. And what in the world can I do now to help Dad be successful? Because I want Chubbs to have the best life possible. This is a new picture. So, I was fortunate enough that George was willing to forgive me of my judgmental thinking and some of the things that I said and did over 14 months. And shortly after, he asked my wife and I to be the godparents for Chubbs. And this is a picture, yes. This is a picture of us at George's house after that baptism in his church. And if you'll notice, the first picture of family looks a little different than this one, but it's still family. I think, I talk to George on a regular basis. We text each other. And I'm not going to take any of his thunder because he's going to come up here in a few minutes and tell you his piece of this. But I look at it as an opportunity for growth for me. I had no idea how much that was going to change my life. I had no idea what George was going to do to my life. And I had no idea what Chubbs was going to do to my life. So I grew tremendously as a man and as a Christian in that time period. I look forward to the text messages. I look forward to the phone calls. I look forward to every minute I get to spend with Chubbs. We see each other not as often as any of us would like. I mean, if it was up to me, I guess we could all live together because But I think, as part of this kingdom effect, there's a call to action for all of us as foster parents. And even if you're not a foster parent in this way. Because it takes a village to raise a child. And I didn't know that. Nobody taught me that as a parent. I had to experience it. And I'm one of those guys that I don't like to listen to the wisdom of other people. I'd rather go out and fall flat on my face and make a mistake myself. It's such a nice feeling to have a relationship with George. And it's such a nice feeling to look at what it has done for his family. And again, I don't want to take away from it, but I do want to mention that George has a total of 7 children. And he completely turned his life around in a matter of just a few short months. And the kingdom effect that I'm talking about is the generations and generations that this is going to impact. It's going to impact my children, it's going to impact his children, it's going to impact their children, and their children, and their children. This is an opportunity for us to break the cycle. Because as I briefly chatted with the director before I came up here, he was telling me about the numbers going up and down in Georgia and they're going up and down in Florida too. And there is an opportunity for us to not need that $31 million if we can try to find a way to break the cycle. If we can try to make a kingdom impact. Because it's going to be different for these children now because they have dads that are in their lives. they have moms that are in their lives, and they have siblings that are in their lives, and we have a support system, and essentially we're co-parenting. I can assure you that was the last thing I wanted when I started this. In the Bible, it says over 30, it mentions the word fatherless or orphan 37 times. That's a lot of times. And I don't know about where you all are with your faith, but there are certain things that you can't stop. There are certain things that are going to happen whether we like it or not. And I believe that a story like this, and I'm sure there's many of them out there, is one of those stories that will make a kingdom impact. It will affect generations to come. As I get ready to hand it over, I'll show you the last picture of family. And that was Christmas Day at my house. And there's a lot of blurry faces on there to protect their identities, but I think you get the point. There's a lot of children, and there's a lot of love. And something that I didn't really understand is that there's enough love to go around. We don't have to love any differently as foster parents or biological parents or whatever it might be. There's plenty of love to go around. The difficult part of this for me is I'm not going to get to see the entire outcome. I'll be dead and buried before all of this plays itself out with all these children involved. And I've got five in my house right now, and I think George has 7, so there's 12 children that are going to be affected by this. And who knows what that implication might have for the future. I'm not going to get a chance to see it, but I'm looking forward to our children having the opportunity to carry this same message, whether it be in the foster care community, in their church, or wherever they end up. And if I can leave you with just one sentence that can summarize my experience as a foster parent, and maybe a challenge or a call to action for you, it would be to love the children that are in your home right now so much that they don't know that they're in foster care. That would be my challenge. Because if you do that, just see what happens. So I'm going to take a minute here and hand it over to George. I'm just so grateful that they could make this trip, and I'm so grateful to have this man in my life, and I'm so grateful to have his entire family in my life. And I just want to tell you that, you know, this is the kind of guy that we all have the ability to help make, because he turned it around. And he's a different man than I met. He's a different man than his children do. He's a man that I respect. He's a man that I love. And to be honest with you, every single person in this room should stand up and give him a round of applause, because this is where the rubber meets the road. This is George Poole.
Well, it was a journey, and it was a journey for me because I have 6 other kids, and not knowing the system, not even knowing I had a child, and only to find out that he was in the system because of the neglect of his mom. I remember going through the DNA to find out that he was mine, and then starting the process to possibly bring him home to me. I was like 46 years old, didn't really think what I wanted to do as far as did I want that responsibility by myself, because I always had help. with all my other children. But I prayed to God about it. And my grandmother raised me, not my mom and my dad. So she came to me and she said, you already know what the answer is. You take on the task. You keep your eye on the prize, and you do what you need to do. So, I remember going to court. I remember at the beginning, before the DNA, I really didn't have anything to say, so I was just sitting there. The mom, she was there. And they offered us both a case plan, but her case plan was going to be very hard. And I remember her getting up and walking out the room and said she was not going to do what they asked her to do, which was to get clean. And then it was just me there. So I signed the case plan, and then I remember I got to see him for the first time. Now, the relationship started out with us with, it was just a bag, and in the bag, God's wife would always send notes. She would send notes about his eating schedule, what he did at certain times, because at the beginning of the case plan, I was giving him 3 hours, 3 times a week. It was a total of 9 hours a week I got to see him. This went on for the entire time of the case plan. So I worked full time. I was given a case plan that it was crazy. But I thank God I made it through it. Case managers, yeah, they came and they went, just because most of them just wanted it on their resume, but they just didn't stay. Had some that were good, and some that didn't see eye to eye with me, so I had to let them go because I knew what I was doing, and I was doing everything to be in compliance with my case plan. I did everything I was supposed to do. My work schedule was crazy. I worked 10 to 2. Then I would see him from 2 to 5, then I'd go back to work from 5 to 10. Not to mention, I had services that I had to do on my case plan, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And it was hard because I got to see him on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And I just could remember on Fridays when I would drop them off, it was just hard because I had to wait to see him again on Tuesday. And the only type of correspondence I really had with them at the beginning was just to divide. We just would pass notes back and forth, back and forth. It was, at the beginning, the relationship, it was neutral, and sometimes it was very tense. There were some notes that were sent that were nice and bright at the beginning, and then there were notes that, well, neither one was to remember. And what I mean by that is, at the beginning, the only thing he had was just a book about him, about his mother, about me. He didn't know me. The only thing he knew about me was the notes that we passed back and forth until we finally met each other. And even after we met each other face to face, I had to deal with the fact that I knew that this man loved my son like he wanted him to be his son. But yet I wanted my son home. And he's right in what he said about at the beginning. They gave me a case plan to fail. Being the non-offending parent, they gave me a case plan to fail. They had me going to see this person, going to see that person, taking this class, doing everything possible. But by the grace of God, I stayed the course because my grandmother taught me to stay the course. So even though there were so many days I went to court, I cried and I left. Because I didn't get to lose that much, which was I wanted to bring my son home. And even after a lengthy battle of trying to bring him home early, I was assigned another case plan that would take me an additional 24 weeks, I'm sorry. And I remember that day going to God and saying, would you mind if he stayed with you all until I completed this last task? Knowing that with my work schedule, it was almost impossible for me to do the last task because of my work schedule. But I was able to talk my boss into changing my schedule so that I can complete this one last task that took me 24 weeks. And I had to get these people that I was seeing to come on my side to see that I was the best fit person for my son to go home and be with. And that was a very long process. It was a process that was only supposed to take 3 months. I went to see that lady for about 13 months. And she always told me, she says, stop thinking about now. Stop thinking about him coming home now. And that was hard for me because only on certain occasions my other kids got to see him. You know, we would do family gatherings. We'd have to go to court. We'd have to get them to say it was okay for him to come home for those things. And for my other kids that are here today to not really understand the story, the struggle, the pain, that not only I went to bring him home, but they're with me now because their situations, they are down here. But thank God I went through what I went through because they were given to me also. After the process was over, it was not a matter of me having to go to court and compete anything to bring them to be with me now. So I have 4 that are living with me now when it was just 1. But the other 3 have some things now in the system that I can't talk about, but everyone that fought me those 14 months in court, they said, sit down, Mr. Poole. We got you today. The kids are going to be with you. You are the best person for them to be with. You have been vetted. Now, as I said, at the beginning, it was hard. It was very hard, you know. Even I remember the conversation that Scott had with me when he told me, he says, well, you know, because there were some times that things were not looking good for me. There were things that at the beginning of the visitations that were going on that I was not aware of that I was doing wrong, but yet I was being hit for it. I didn't know that, you know, everyone that was supposed to be around him had to have a background check on him. And I didn't know it, just brought him around family. So, you know, the caseworker at that time came around and saw that I had other people that were not there supposed to be there. So she just took him. And then, of course, I had to go to court and explain to them, well, you know, I didn't know any better. But it was a problem. Because I had to get to know how the system works. Because I'd never been through the system before. And I remember at Christmas time, we were trying to get him home for the first year. And I remember us going to court, and because in Florida where they only work Monday through Friday, and that week Christmas was on like a Wednesday or Thursday, I believe, that year, they were saying they couldn't bring it to me, and that I would have to see him for Christmas. And I remember the judge that we had that day, I asked, well, what day can you bring him? And they were like, well, after Christmas. So the judge was like, well, I'll tell you what, since you can only bring him on that day, he's going to get him for a week. And they were all like shocked that he gave my daughter at the time him for a whole week. We didn't take the whole week though. But anyway, as I began the process of, I guess, after I got the doctors and everyone to say that it was okay for him to come home, everything went really fast. It went from me only seeing him the 9 hours a week to they gave me like a couple of tasks that I had to complete before we got reunified. Unfortunately, well, the fortunate thing for me was that the way that they worded me doing what I needed to do, they didn't give certain dates, and I had some really great FSWs that had gotten to know me. And what should have taken me about maybe 3.5 months to get done, they helped me to accomplish in about 4 weeks. And I just remember that part of a really great story, because me and Scott at the beginning, it was not intentionally personal, but it was personal. He wanted my son. And it's like you say, they were telling him what he wanted to hear. This guy's not going to make it. He's not going to complete all this stuff. Who would not love him? He's just that type of kid. Anyone in here would love him. And I just remember, like I said, him telling me, well, if you don't make it out, he'll be all right, I'll take it. But I knew I was going to make it, because I just remember when everyone told me to stay the course. Now, he went to, like you said, he went to a lot of the court hearings. He was at most of them that I had. He was there when I originally tried to reunify with my son, but I was denied reunification because of another thing that they wanted to do that would require 24 weeks. And him and his lovely wife, they said no problem, you can stay. So, I guess a lot of people would probably think you all can relate, once the child goes home, then the relationship ends. I never saw it that way, not even from the beginning. Even with the tension that was there, I just never saw it ending there, because I knew that his beginning started with them. He was there for a long time. He was able to adjust going back and forth, but I'm pretty sure there was some confusion there too. But he made it through it. We all made it through it. We, I think, are so much better now, just because of the fact that at the end, I did not want there to be an ending, just because of the fact that they didn't see him as a couple, which really impressed me at the beginning. They didn't see him as being a couple. They saw him as just being this loving child that was brought to them, that they had for 14 months in their home. And our relationship, I'm so fortunate that it ended the way it ended, meaning there was no doubt in my mind who would be his godparents in the event that something happened to me. And at that time, I was a single dad. I'm now engaged. But they are still going to make great godparents in the event that something happens to me. But at that time, I was single. And I wanted to make sure that the people that showed so much love from day one would still be in his life. Now, I don't know how they feel at the beginning. I spoke to them about being the godparents, because I know from that day when we were doing the transition, it didn't happen the way I thought it was going to happen. Meaning, I just felt like we were just going to go to court, the judge was going to hand it to me, that was going to be it. That's not how it happened. He came with his truck, with his family, with all of his belongings. And between the two of us, 2 men, we did the transition. And I know it was hard for him, because the whole time I saw him, I never saw him cry. He cried. He cried hard. And you have in a situation where you ask yourself, how can there be 2 winners in a situation like this? How can there be 2 winners? One person's going to walk away happy. The other person's going to walk around and their heart's going to be heavy, and they're going to be hurt. The entire time I saw him in court, I saw this strong man that basically, even though he didn't have rights, he had the power over me because he had my son. He had my son. And I'm just so fortunate that God brought us together. Not only that he brought us together, that he keeps us together, because it wasn't just about making them the godparents. It's about a person that I look at him, I have nothing but love. What I may have thought is not how I feel now, and it's not the way I feel, even though he's been out of the system now almost a year and a half. We still get with family. I'm just going to just close with this, because I can only imagine how the transition for a lot of foster parents when the children are home. But I want you to look at the biological parent that's working that case plan and try not to have a judgment against that person. I know it's kind of hard at the beginning because when most of these kids come into the system, they're coming with legitimate reasons. And don't get me wrong. A lot of them don't need to be home. I get that. But if you happen to run into a George or a Scott, and the story that we're telling the story because it's a unique story. For one, I was surprised when he had asked me to come, with them after them discussing it. And I'm so glad that I was able to come. And it's not about my life turning around and the person that I was versus who I am now. I thank God I'm not the person I was then. And I thank God for this family that loved and raised my son for 14 months, that continues our relationship. And I pray to God that he makes it to see Cam hit 18 as well as the rest of his kids. And we go to that graduation together. And we celebrate because he's not going to forget them. He's in a different house, but he still knows them. He still loves them. I know him, I love him. He knows my family now. I know his family. It was just a very hard process that turned out with a great ending. And I owe so much to him and his family for having us over at Christmas. I had them come over to my house after he was baptized, Christian. And I feel like, my grandmother's smiling down from heaven right now because you know what? I'm the man she wanted me to be.
Heartwarming, felt good, it makes you feel good. It makes you think, are we in it for our children or are we in it for ourselves? It also makes you take a long look at the male, how sometimes our Department of Family and Children's Service ignore the man of the house and go straight to the women. Treat men like we're non-existent in some points. So I thank you, George, and I thank you, Scott, for taking the time to come out. I met George last night. We got a little confused on our hotels. And I went to Hampton Inn. I left Hampton Inn and went to Days Inn, left Days Inn and went to Beachview. He was in the bed at Beachview about to go to sleep when I got there. But other than that, we had a great time.